So in today's video, I want to talk about the 3 sales skills you need to master in order to have a successful sales career. Now, there's 2 reasons why I wanted to make this video. The first reason is I see a ton of these videos on YouTube and on TikTok, and a lot of them are very high level, very quality focused. So they'll say things like, in order to be a successful seller, you need to have curiosity, you need to have grit, which you could say that about any job that you work at. So I wanted this video to be extremely actionable about the actual skill sets that you need to develop and how to go about developing them. That's one reason. The second reason is in the age of AI, there's so many AI tools that are eating huge portions of a seller's job. Things like account research, drafting business cases, generating proposals. There's so many AI tools out there that in the past a seller had to do manually, and it was a good way to differentiate from being a good seller to a great seller. So in the age of AI, I think in the future, it's really important for salespeople to master the fundamentals of selling, because those are the skills that AI hasn't been able to automate yet, and it's going to help you differentiate from your peers and go from a good seller to a great seller into the future. Now, before we dive into today's video, quick intro to me. My name is Sanjay Ravichandran. I've been in enterprise software sales for over 8 years, where I've done every single individual contributor role except one, which is to be a global account manager. So I've done SDR work, I've been an SMB rep, I've been a mid-market rep, and I've been an enterprise rep. And so on this YouTube channel, I post mainly around AI and sales content. And one of my big interests is how AI and AI tools are really impacting go-to-market and sales, and how you can use these different AI technologies to be able to generate more pipeline and close more customers. If you like this kind of content, follow me here on YouTube for weekly videos. All right, let's talk about the first sales skill you need to master, and that is outbound pipeline generation. Now, the reason I recommend starting here is all sales issues can be solved by having more pipeline and more deals to work. Every single quarter I've ever missed, it's because I didn't have enough qualified pipeline going into that quarter, and I was always scrambling to try to make something happen in order to hit my number. So a good rule of thumb to always aim for is to have 4x pipeline coverage to whatever sales number you're trying to hit. So if you're trying to close $1 million in a quarter, you want to have at least $4 million worth of qualified pipeline going into that quarter. So if a deal slips, something happens to your customer, you're not scrambling at the end of the quarter trying to make something happen to hit your number. Now let's talk about what good pipeline generation is and how to master it. Good pipeline generation at its core is being able to take a company, do deep research on that organization. So understanding what makes that organization move forward, how do they make money, what do they care about, what challenges are they trying to solve? Take those challenges and then figure out how your product or service helps that company solve their challenges, and form an opinion on why they should use your product over the products in the ecosystem that they have access to in order to solve their particular challenge. Now, once you've formed an opinion on why that organization should buy your product, then you're gonna go research the people within the organization that feel the pain of that challenge the most, and then reach out to them using LinkedIn, cold calls, cold email, and create messaging that helps break through the noise and generate interest from them to kind of stop what they're doing in their day-to-day and talk to you, or schedule a discovery call to really unpack what they're trying to solve for and if you are the right solution for their problems. So how do you actually master pipeline generation? There's 2 things I recommend doing. First, if you're on a sales team, go find the best person at prospecting and just shadow them. See how they do account research, how they make cold calls, how they write cold emails, because they're going after the exact same prospects you're going after and they're seeing success. So don't reinvent the wheel, follow exactly what they're doing. The second thing I recommend doing is using AI tools like Claude or ChatGPT to really understand your buyer. The reason this is important is a lot of young sellers over-rotate on product knowledge when they should be over-rotating on buyer and ICP knowledge. So understand, if you're selling to a marketing leader, for example, understand what a marketing leader does every single day, how they're measured, and what challenges they need to solve for their business, and how your product will help them make their lives easier and how they can be more successful at their jobs. Now, the second skill to master is doing discovery that quantifies pain. Now, the reason this is really important is a lot of deals die because the customer doesn't want to change status quo. And so it's really important to ask good discovery questions that help quantify the value of not solving a specific challenge, because then you can make the business case back to the customer to say that if you don't solve this challenge, you're losing X amount of dollars, you're losing market share to your competitors, so that you can make the case for why they should move to solve that challenge, ideally with your product. Additionally, if you can quantify the pain, it helps you justify the price tag of your product. For example, I've had deals where we've been able to show that if this customer can get a new application into market faster, they can generate X dollars of revenue, and our platform cost, 6 figures. But that 6 figures is overshadowed by the millions of dollars in revenue that they're gonna get by being able to solve this problem and release their applications to market faster. So it's really important to be able to quantify pain, because you're able to justify the price tag of your product, and it's also helping you be able to compete against the status quo of doing nothing. Now, let's talk about how you can get better at asking good discovery questions. The first thing I'd recommend doing is if you're on a sales team, go find your best sales rep and listen to their discovery calls and any of their call recordings. And better yet, if you are taking discovery calls, take those recordings, listen to them yourself, and then also take them to your boss and dissect them to understand, are you asking those second and third level discovery questions? Now, if you don't have a team, what you could do is use something like Claude and build a Claude skill to be able to take very popular sales frameworks like spin selling or command of the message and be able to kind of package that into a skill and then upload a transcript from your sales meeting and have Claude be that sales mentor for you to analyze, are you asking those second and third level discovery questions to help quantify the pain? Also, there's so many great books out there on how to ask good discovery questions. The two I recommend starting with are Spin Selling by Neil Rackman. It's a seller's classic. It goes over asking like situation questions, pain questions, implication questions, and need payoff questions. Need, payoff, and implication are really centered around the qualification and quantification of pain. So recommend reading Spin Selling. The second book is The Qualified Sales Leader by John McMahon. John McMahon is like the godfather of software sales. And so he really packaged all his knowledge into like a 250-page book, super easy read. And it goes over things like building champions, how to ask good qualifying discovery questions, and also how to quantify and take that information and build a great business case. So I recommend reading both of those books. I think it's a great starting point for any sales rep. The third skill to master is identifying and building really strong sales champions. One of the biggest unlocks in my sales career that helped me close bigger deals at bigger customers is understanding that a seller doesn't close a deal, a buyer closes a deal. Now, the reason this matters is as you start selling to larger companies, there are going to be times where there are going to be so many different stakeholders involved in a deal that you won't be in every single conversation about your product. So it's really important to identify people that have influence within your prospect account and give them the information they need to be able to make the pitch or make the business case on your behalf on why that company should buy your product or service. This is also equally important because not only do you need that to close the deal, but if you don't have a strong champion at your prospect account, there's a very high likelihood that they might even buy your product once, but they won't renew it. Because if there's not a champion that's actually helping that organization adopt your product, then you're probably gonna have a 1-year deal and then they're gonna churn the next year, which is a bad look for everyone involved. All right, now let's talk about how to master identifying and building champions. The first thing is actually identifying what a champion is. There's two criteria you need to look for and really have it drilled into your head. The first is a champion is someone that wants your product or service to win for a particular deal. So they are someone that actually wants to use your product. They have a very strong opinion on your product being the one that they want to use. So that is the first criteria that you need. Someone that actually is wanting to take the hill and actually wants to use your product. Second, they need to be able to have influence and access to the economic buyer. So for example, if you are selling to sales leaders, you might have a director of sales that wants to use your product, but the ultimate person that says whether or not your product can be used is going to be the chief revenue officer. So you want to have a director of sales that has access and influence over the chief revenue officer, because a CRO doesn't have time to go and evaluate a ton of different tools, but he will take recommendations based on the people that report into him. So it's really important to identify those champions that have the influence over the ultimate decision maker, the economic buyer in this case, and build them with the knowledge they need to make the case on your behalf. Couple ways you can identify champions: ask them if they've made a purchase at this company before, ask if they can get you a meeting with the economic buyer, or ask them to get you some sort of legal document. So if they can get an NDA signed, if they can do some sort of security review if you're selling a software product where they need to review security, if they can help mobilize different teams internally, they're a good candidate for a champion. All right, now that you've identified your champion, there's a couple ways I recommend building them up so they can sell on your behalf. First, I recommend meeting them in person as quickly as possible. The dynamic of your relationship changes a ton once you get off Zoom and get and meet them in person. So always try to fly out and meet your champion in person as soon as possible. A couple other things that I've done in the past to build up champions are: one, getting them introduced to my existing customers. So I like to schedule customer reference calls so they get excited about working with my company and some of the value that my product can provide for their organization. Additionally, I've gotten really good over the last couple of years about building really great business cases and then templatizing them and then providing them for my champions to where they just have to put in their inputs and they can create amazing presentations or TCO analysis that they can use to pitch on why they need to buy my product at their company. Two books I would recommend reading if you're interested in building better champions. The first is How to Build a Business Case by the Harvard Business Review. It's not even a full book, it's like a 75-page pamphlet, and it has completely changed the way I build business cases with my champions, so I highly recommend reading it. The second book is Sell With by Nate Nasrallah. He really talks about how to build assets and executive summaries with your champion to really arm them to sell on your behalf in a way that makes sense to their organizations. All right, so that's the video for today. If you found the video valuable, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I post weekly on AI and sales, specifically how you can use sales fundamentals mixed with the new AI technologies to be able to generate more pipeline and close more customers. So if you like the intersection of AI and sales, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have any questions or video ideas, please put them in the comments below. But outside that, I'll see you guys next week in the next video. Take care.